But yeah, so yeah, just in that of yeah. So anyway, so okay, so yeah, and I mean, because like I can direct my voice. So like if I choose to, I don't like I could start talking here, but I could talk and it would be like you know, and again, see, okay, so this is a paradox, or not paradox, but like okay, because I could talk to the camera, and like I am now, I'm speaking directly to the camera, so you like you can see that this is the purpose of the video is I'm speaking to it. But there, um, yeah. But that being the case, there wouldn't be anything wrong actually. There, like you would still hear all of my ideas speaking, even if I wasn't speaking. Even if I just started like, yeah. So like if I just, um, yeah. So like if I just started speaking, um, yeah. So if I just kind of started speaking, and I started speaking like not directed to the camera, then that would still work, and you'd still get the ideas just as well as if I'm not, because you're still hearing it, so you'd still get the idea, even if I'm not focusing my, even if the object, even if the object at whom I'm speaking isn't the camera of this video, but um, but so, and I think our minds can sometimes okay, because there's a phenomenon or not phenomenon, but well, I guess phenomenon. Because I thought phenomenon. Um, well, okay. When I looked on Google, the definition of phenomenon was like a supernatural like occurrence, or like a supernatural occurrence of something that happens that's supernatural, basically. Um, so that's kind of how or that's like on the one definition I heard of phenomenon, but then I also thought phenomenon didn't just mean having to do with supernatural, but it could just mean like any kind of event or occurrence, like even if it's not a supernatural thing, it could be like a scientific observation. People can see this like kind of law of how something works, and they call that like a phenomenon, I guess. And then there's also like people say, oh, that was a phenomenal work. You did a phenomenal job, or something like that. Um, so anyway, I guess it probably might not just. I guess there could probably be different meanings for the same word, I guess. Um, but anyway, but what I noticed was, because what's been happening um, is so what's been happening is my sister um, okay um, yes, so what's been happening is my sister has been she's been coming here at night into my room to spend time with me, hang out with me. So so because of that, because that's become a nightly consistent occurrence, then like just earlier, it was like not long before I started making this video, I was walking around the room and I was talking to myself about an idea I had, and I heard a sound, and it was kind of like a knock. It sounded like a knock sound. So I thought that sound meant that my sister was outside the door and she had knocked kind of quietly, basically. So anyway, so I heard that, but then I kind of heard it like, so that thought came in, or no, well, okay, I was already thinking a thought, but then that thought came in. Okay, yeah, so there was one thought going, but then the other thought came in. And what I noticed was when that other thought came in, okay, so yeah, so when, okay, yeah, so basically when that sound came in, I thought that my sister was knocking on the door. So that's what I thought. But then I went and I actually opened the door and I checked, and she actually wasn't there. So I think, but see, the fact that I actually expected, no, and this is the reality. Like, this is how our psychological being works, is when something consistently, routinely happens, then we begin to expect it. You know, if this is how something is, then we begin to expect it. And because that has been the case, that's been happening at a nightly occurrence, is I'll hear the knock on the door, is that even though, so I heard a sound, I mean, it definitely, yeah, it wasn't just in my own head, it was actually, you know, something made that sound, and I don't even know what actually made it. I mean, if it wasn't knocking, it may have been some other kind of knocking or something. Something else made that sound. But because I heard that sound, then based off of what my psychological being had learned is a regular happening, that, you know, my sister comes here on a nice nightly basis, then my brain expected that, and because my brain expected that, then that's why, because my brain expected it, because that's what's been happening, and that's why when that sound came, I mistakenly, because my brain was already expecting that along those lines, then my brain actually expected that, and then when I heard that sound, I thought it was the knock, basically. So yeah, so it was just really interesting, like, how that works, of like the like how, because when things begin to routinely happen, I begin to expect it. And like everything, like every single mental every single mental process you have, it starts to actually cause a actual thing, or it starts to actually cause an actual reaction, meaning like there's not a single mental process that happens that doesn't eventually start to actually mold your brain, because every single decision you make on a day-by-day basis actually shapes how your brain thinks, you know. And because of that, then, you know, like the more you think a certain thing, then the more it becomes expected, and the more it becomes expected, then yeah, it just becomes more routine and more expected, that kind of thing. So yeah, with all that being said, I had a lot of thoughts, and well, okay, all those thoughts I just had, see, as I was in the because, see, I didn't want to interrupt myself, I didn't want to lose my train of thought, because yeah, it's really important to be able to focus on one thing at a time, because if I don't focus on one thing at a time, then my brain will start to my brain will develop a disorder, which is lack of attention. And lack of attention means that I switch between multiple things, that kind of thing, and that's really bad. And honestly, most people nowadays have really bad attention spans because of, honestly, technological devices is a big kind of factor that plays into that. But so technology can, if people don't use it carefully, then it can definitely be a factor that causes lack of attention and that kind of thing. But basically what I was saying, so it's important for me to understand and think about one thing at a time and solve one problem at a time, because if I switch between multiple things, then my brain will start to become cluttered with all different kinds of multiple things coming in at once, and then I can't process it, and I can no longer successfully solve the problem. So basically, then I can no longer really successfully solve something, and understand something if I'm just constantly switching, having lack of attention. So so that being said, everything that I just said, everything that I just said until I started saying what I'm saying now was, I said that, but as I was saying that, I heard this. I heard the same sound again, and because I heard the same sound again, I actually thought that. She knocked. I thought that she just knocked on the door again. So that's what I thought. But because I was in the middle of the idea here, I was like, I don't really know that. So basically, I'm just gonna I'm gonna finish my idea. I'm gonna finish saying what I'm saying before I go and check, basically. And and that's just what I thought was the greater consequence, basically, that even if she actually is standing out there, I think it's of greater consequence, or it's of greater importance that I actually finish my thought before I go and check it, So that was the thought, and that's why, even though as I was saying the idea, I heard that sound, I ignored it, basically, and I resisted that distraction, and I continued on with what I was saying. So, now that being the case, now, for me to actually process, because, I don't know, she could be at the door right now, or maybe not, but maybe I just heard it like I did that first time, again. But what I'm thinking is that she probably didn't. I think I probably just heard it, because I think if she actually was standing at the door there and she knocked really softly, was kind of how I heard it, and then I didn't answer, she's not wanting to just stand there forever, so obviously if she knocks once softly and I don't hear it, or no, if she knocks once and I hear it softly, and then okay, so if she knocks once and then I hear it softly, but then I don't answer, then she's not just gonna stand there, because if I'm not answering, then automatically her psychological being is gonna think that I didn't hear her, so then she'll try to get my attention, because she doesn't just want to knock softly and then stand there forever. So because of that, then I'm thinking, so because of that, then I think if she did knock and it was soft, but I just didn't answer the door, then she'd probably knock a bit louder. And that's actually what's happened before when she actually has knocked, is if she might knock softly and then I'm not certain if I heard her or not. But then I'll clearly hear her knock more loudly on the door. But so that's actually what's happened before when she actually was knocking. But here I just I heard like a small, really soft knock, and then after that I didn't hear anything else. And that was and that was the same thing that happened with the other sound. I just heard that kind of soft knocking sound that I thought was her knocking. I checked the door, she wasn't there. And I think that's probably what the case is. I think she's probably not at the door now. I think I probably just heard it. But just to prove it out, just to be certain, because again, I want to prove things out, and it's always good to be certain about things. It's better to be certain about something than just think something and then not be certain, because I have to be certain. My brain has to be able to, because see, this is what's happening. See, because the fact is she's either out there or she's not. Okay, so so one of those two is the reality. Okay, but see, my brain, I'm thinking, okay, based off of the reasoning I just presented, I don't think that she's out there. But I'm not actually certain. Okay, so that means the reality is the reality, no matter whether I'm certain or not right now. So really the need doesn't have to do with reality, because reality is the same. She's either out there or she's not right now. But the fact is that I'm not certain. So the issue, the actual kind of problem, or not problem as in a bad thing, but just like, but the actual kind of, the matter at hand, it doesn't have to do with whether she's out there or not, because she either is or she isn't. And whether I'm certain of it or not doesn't actually change it. But the matter is me being able to be certain, so that I can know. Therefore, being certain, so therefore I can know whether she's not or out there, so that I can, so that I can just be certain of it, so that if she was, then I can let her in, and if she's not, then I can clearly discern that, basically, or I can clearly decipher that, or discern that, basically. So. And that's just why it's important for my own mind to be able to process things, because everything in the world is something that we process, and it's important that we know how to actually accurately determine in our own minds, to where we can objectively know in our own minds, based off of not just what's in our minds, but off of actual reality of how things actually are, either externally or internally. We have to be able to decipher it and organize it to be able to understand it and be certain or not. So that's why I'm going to check now, is to be certain whether or not she's there or not. Yeah. So now that I have checked and she was not out there, then that has actually proved that my reasoning before was actually, it was right reasoning, essentially. So it was actually correct reasoning there of that it wasn't actually there, basically. So that's kind of it. I think, I don't know if you're anyway, but that's pretty much it. So but we have assured that, so that means now that I've actually went and my reasoning has actually proven to be true, that it was right, because that sound wasn't her. It was just it was the same sound that I heard earlier that I thought was the knocking, but wasn't. So that means that my reasoning there has been basically or it's actually it's actually concluded. It's basically proven to be okay. Yeah, no, and then there was like another process that kind of came in that starting to come in, but one thing at a time. So, yeah, but my reasoning has proven to be true because because well, when I opened the door, she wasn't there. So that means my reasoning obviously was accurate. It was actually accurate reasoning. So now I know that reasoning, that line of reasoning was accurate. So that I had. So, and that means that, and yeah, based off the fact that obviously if she was at the door, then even if she knocked softly, I would, because what she'll do is she'll either put her feet under the door, or she'll kind of like wedge her toes, kind of so I can see her toes there. She'll either do that, or she'll knock softly and then knock loudly. So, so it's really, like those are really the only ways, or those are ways that I can. Those are ways that I can for sure tell that she actually is at the door. But if I just kind of hear a little sound like that, and then there's just silence after that, then it's probably not her at the door, because obviously she's not just going to stand there and knock softly and then just stand there forever. Because she wants to get in, and because she wants to get in, she's not just going to stand there. She's going to knock, and then she's going to knock louder, because if she just stands there, that's psychological neglect, basically, because she has the need to be let into the door, but she's basically just being stifled there and just standing there. That need inside her that is moving her toward getting in the door is basically being stifled because it's just there, but it's not being met, and that's psychological neglect, basically. That is like, okay, yeah, no, and that's basically psychological neglect, and that's basically what it is. So, and that's what happens a lot of the times, is people neglect other people's needs when people are trying to do something, or so that part of their being is neglected, and so obviously if my sister's there, she's going to be uncomfortable, she wouldn't just be comfortable. I mean, unless she's just, I guess it is possible that someone could just knock on a door and just not hear an answer and then just stand there. There's some people that could do that. They could do that and feel totally comfortable, because maybe they don't really care too much about. Okay, but that would only be because if they're actually wanting to go into the door, then like, okay, if they actually want to get in, and like they actually, like, that's actually what they want, then I think if that's actually what they want, then I don't think they would just want to just like I don't think they would be satisfied with just standing there. I think maybe the only way someone would actually just knock on the door, not get an answer, and just stand there is maybe if they just already had in their mind that I just want to go and I just want to stand by the door, and I actually don't. If they don't answer, then I don't actually care. It doesn't actually bother me, and I'm okay with just standing at the door. And I guess if someone did that, I guess that's the only way someone could just stand at a door and be fine with it, is if they actually just they want to, just for the purpose of, they just want to stand at the door, and they don't actually care, and they're not like they need to be let in, like they're not actually trying to get in, but if they don't get in, then they're just totally okay with standing at the door, and that's possible. But obviously, I know with my sister, that's not the case. She's not knocking the door just because, maybe I might hear her and let her in, or maybe I might, and she's just going to stand there forever. She's not that's not her purpose. She wants to actually come into the door. So because she actually wants to get inside my room with me, then that means that she's not just going to be satisfied. She's not going to be comfortable with just standing there. Because she's going to be uncomfortable, because there's that psychological need in her that's being neglected, then it makes her uncomfortable. And out of that discomfort, then what she's going to do is she's going to knock louder. And what she's doing with knocking louder is she's basically trying to get my attention that something's wrong, that she's at the door and I'm not answering, and basically that she's being neglected, and that's what that is the knocking is actually her, trying to get me to hear her so that I will actually meet her needs, so that, because it's basically that, and that's basically telling me that something's wrong, that she's at the door, she needs to be inside my room, but she's not getting inside my room, so she's knocking, telling me that something's wrong. There's that psychological wrongness of that need not being met to get inside. And that's basically what it is. So, yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, that's all there's to it. So, yeah. So that's everything. And yeah, just then I kind of heard something else, but it was a different sound, and it sounded like my sister had actually, okay, and if my sister's at the door, then she can hear me now. So if she's at the door, then she can hear that I heard a sound that that I had this thought that it might be her, and if she's actually at the door and she hears me talking to this camera about the fact that I heard a sound which I thought that it could be at the door, but I actually don't think it is, then if I actually thought that, and the fact is, I don't think she's at the door, I think, honestly, and the sound, it could have, because the doorknobs sound similar, but there's other doors in the house that are really near to my door. So that means, the fact that I just heard a doorknob doesn't necessarily mean that it's my doorknob. It could be one of the other doorknobs that are actually quite near my doorknob. Or, that are quite near my door. So it's not necessarily, just because I heard that doesn't necessarily mean that she's at the door. And she's clearly not, because if she was, then she would knock, and I would clearly hear that, or she would clearly advocate, or she'd clearly assert herself, but she would clearly assert herself, meaning she'd clearly make her presence known by knocking, or whatever, but obviously that didn't happen. So I think that was definitely, because I heard that sound, so it was actually definitely, it wasn't my doorknob, so I think, it was definitely, because there's nothing else in the house that could have made that sound, so that sound, it was definitely not my doorknob. It was definitely a different doorknob that I heard, but it wasn't my doorknob. So